Invasive species silently invade ecosystems and destroy natural ecological balance worldwide. These organisms enter environments where they do not naturally belong. Once introduced, they often spread rapidly without natural predators. Their growth disrupts food chains that have existed for centuries. Native species struggle to compete for limited resources like food and space. This imbalance can lead to the extinction of local plants and animals. Many invasive species arrive through human activities such as trade and travel. Ships, cargo, and even travelers unintentionally carry these harmful organisms. Climate change also helps invasive species survive in new regions. Warmer temperatures allow them to expand into previously unsuitable habitats. One major example is the zebra mussel in North American waters. It clogs water systems and damages aquatic ecosystems severely. Another example is the cane toad introduced in Australia. It spreads quickly and poisons native predators that try to eat it. Invasive plants also dominate forests and grasslands aggressively. They block sunlight and prevent native plants from growing properly. This reduces biodiversity and weakens ecosystem resilience over time. Ecosystems depend on a delicate balance between all living organisms. When that balance is disturbed, the entire system begins to collapse. Invasive species often reproduce faster than native species. This gives them a huge advantage in new environments. They consume resources before native species can access them. As a result, native populations decline rapidly. Some invasive insects destroy entire agricultural crops. Farmers suffer huge economic losses due to these infestations. Invasive species can also carry new diseases into ecosystems. These diseases may spread to native wildlife populations. The consequences are often unpredictable and long-lasting. Once established, invasive species are extremely difficult to remove. Human intervention becomes necessary but is often costly and complex. Biological control methods are sometimes used to manage their spread. However, introducing another species can sometimes create new problems. Prevention remains the most effective strategy against invasions. Awareness among people is crucial to stop accidental spread. Simple actions like cleaning boats can reduce ecological damage. Governments enforce strict biosecurity laws to limit invasions. Despite efforts, many invasive species continue to spread globally. Freshwater ecosystems are especially vulnerable to invasion. Rivers and lakes provide ideal conditions for rapid growth. Forest ecosystems also face threats from invasive insects and plants. These invaders alter soil composition and nutrient cycles. Over time, entire landscapes can change dramatically. Native animals lose their habitats and food sources. This forces them to migrate or face extinction. Invasive predators can wipe out local prey species quickly. Small ecological changes can trigger massive environmental consequences. Scientists continuously study invasive species to understand their behavior. Early detection helps in controlling their spread effectively. Technology plays a key role in monitoring ecosystems today. Satellite imaging helps track changes in vegetation patterns. Public education campaigns raise awareness about environmental protection. Schools teach students about biodiversity and ecosystem health. Conservation efforts aim to restore damaged habitats. Restoration projects can take years or even decades. Some ecosystems never fully recover after invasion. The loss of biodiversity weakens Earth's natural stability. Every species plays an important role in its ecosystem. Removing even one species can disrupt the entire system. Invasive species highlight the importance of ecological responsibility. Human actions often unintentionally create environmental problems. Understanding these impacts is the first step towards solutions. Global cooperation is needed to fight invasive species effectively. Protecting ecosystems ensures survival for future generations. Nature depends on balance, diversity, and careful preservation. The threat of invasive species continues to grow every year. The impact of invasive species extends far beyond what most people realize. They do not just compete with native species, but actively transform ecosystems. Some invasive organisms alter soil chemistry in ways that harm native plants. This change makes it impossible for original vegetation to regrow naturally. In aquatic environments, invasive algae can block sunlight completely. Without sunlight, underwater plants die and oxygen levels drop sharply. Fish and other aquatic life begin to suffocate in low oxygen water. Entire lake ecosystems can turn into dead zones over time. Invasive species often thrive because they lack natural predators in new regions. This gives them unchecked freedom to multiply rapidly. Native predators may not recognize them as food at all. Even when they do, the invaders may be toxic or harmful. This creates a dangerous imbalance in predator-prey relationships. Some invasive species even outcompete natives for nesting sites. Birds, reptiles, and mammals lose critical breeding grounds. This directly affects reproduction and long-term population survival. Ecosystems become less stable with every species lost. The chain reaction of extinction can spread quietly and quickly. Invasive plants often grow in dense clusters that choke native forests. They prevent sunlight from reaching the forest floor. As a result, young native seedlings fail to grow. Over time, forests become dominated by a single invasive species. This reduces habitat diversity for countless animals. Pollinators like bees and butterflies also suffer from habitat loss. Without native flowers, their food sources disappear. This impacts agriculture and food production indirectly. Invasive insects can destroy crops faster than farmers can respond. Entire harvests are lost due to sudden infestations. This creates economic stress for farming communities. Governments spend millions controlling invasive outbreaks. Despite this, complete eradication is rarely successful. Invasive species adapt quickly to new environments. Their genetic flexibility helps them survive harsh conditions. Even chemical treatments sometimes fail against them. Resistance builds over time, making control even harder. Some invasive fish species dominate rivers and lakes. They consume eggs and juveniles of native fish populations. This prevents native species from recovering naturally. Fishing industries suffer as native stocks decline. Human food supply chains are indirectly affected. Invasive species also disrupt cultural and traditional practices. Indigenous communities lose access to native plants and animals. This affects their way of life and heritage. Ecosystem restoration becomes a complex scientific challenge. Researchers must carefully study every affected environment. Sometimes multiple invasive species interact and worsen damage. These interactions create unpredictable ecological outcomes. Prevention is always more effective than removal after spread. Early monitoring systems are essential for protection. Citizen reporting helps detect new invasions quickly. Public participation strengthens environmental defense systems. International trade regulations aim to reduce accidental spread. However, global connectivity still increases invasion risks. Even small actions can have large ecological consequences. A single transported organism can start a large invasion. Education remains a powerful tool against ecological threats. Understanding risks helps people make responsible choices. Ecosystem health depends on long-term human awareness. Scientists use predictive models to forecast invasions. These models help governments prepare response strategies. Restoration ecology works to rebuild damaged ecosystems. Native species are sometimes reintroduced after removal efforts. Recovery is slow and requires constant monitoring. Some habitats may never fully return to original condition. The struggle against invasive species continues across the globe. Invasive species often succeed because ecosystems are already under stress. Pollution and habitat destruction make environments easier to invade. Weak ecosystems cannot resist aggressive newcomers effectively. Rivers polluted with chemicals become breeding grounds for invasive organisms. Forest fragmentation allows invasive plants to spread more easily. Roads and human settlements create pathways for invasion. Even wind and animals can carry seeds of invasive plants. Once established, invasive species change nutrient cycles permanently. This affects how energy flows through the ecosystem. Native decomposers may not break down invasive plant material efficiently. This leads to buildup of organic waste in soil. Soil quality gradually declines over time. Invasive earthworms in some regions change soil structure completely. This disrupts root systems of native plants. Some invasive species form symbiotic relationships with local organisms. These relationships can further strengthen their dominance. Invasive species often reproduce in multiple ways simultaneously. This makes them extremely difficult to control biologically. Some plants spread through seeds, roots, and fragmentation at once. Even small fragments can regrow into full organisms. Aquatic invasives can travel through connected waterways easily. Floods and storms accelerate their spread across regions. Human-engineered canals connect previously isolated ecosystems. This increases the risk of cross-ecosystem invasion. Invasive species often arrive without warning signs. By the time they are noticed, damage is already extensive. Early detection requires constant environmental surveillance. Scientists use traps and sensors to monitor ecosystems. DNA testing helps identify invasive species quickly. Rapid response teams are deployed in some countries. Their goal is to remove invasives before they spread widely. However, funding for such programs is often limited. Public awareness campaigns are essential for support. Many people unknowingly help spread invasive species. Garden plants can become invasive if released into the wild. Aquarium species sometimes enter natural waterways illegally. Even pets can become invasive when abandoned. Education about responsible ownership is very important. Ecosystem balance depends on every organism playing its role. Invasive species disrupt these roles completely. They often outcompete natives for sunlight and nutrients. This creates long-term ecological instability. Some ecosystems collapse entirely under invasive pressure. Coral reefs are especially vulnerable to invasive algae. These algae smother coral and block essential light. Coral death affects thousands of marine species. Entire marine food chains begin to break down. Invasive predators can also alter animal behavior. Native species may change feeding or migration patterns. This leads to further ecological imbalance. Scientists classify invasive species as a major global threat. They are considered one of the top causes of biodiversity loss. Climate change and invasions often reinforce each other. Warmer climates help invasives survive in new areas. This expands their potential range significantly. International cooperation is needed to address this issue. Countries share data on invasive species movements. Global databases track invasion patterns and impacts. Conservationists work to protect endangered native species. Protected areas help shield ecosystems from invasion. However, even protected zones are not completely safe. Human visitors can still introduce harmful organisms. Strict biosecurity measures are required in sensitive regions. Ecosystem resilience depends on biodiversity strength. Without action, invasive species will continue spreading globally. The silent spread of invasive species continues to reshape ecosystems worldwide. Many invasions go unnoticed until severe ecological damage appears. Once populations explode, control becomes extremely challenging and expensive. Native species often have no evolutionary defense against newcomers. This makes ecosystems highly vulnerable to rapid disruption. Invasive species can alter fire cycles in forest ecosystems. Some plants increase flammability, causing more frequent wildfires. These fires destroy habitats and accelerate ecological collapse. After fires, invasive species often regrow faster than natives. This prevents natural forest recovery processes from occurring. Wetland ecosystems are also heavily impacted by invasive plants. They block water flow and change hydrological patterns. This affects fish breeding and aquatic plant diversity. Invasive fish species can hybridize with native fish populations. This weakens genetic purity and long-term survival of native species. Genetic contamination is a hidden but serious threat. Invasive insects may carry parasites harmful to native wildlife. These parasites spread quickly through vulnerable populations. Birds and mammals can suffer sudden population declines. Some invasive species change the physical structure of habitats. They can turn forests into shrublands or grasslands. This transformation reduces shelter for many animal species. Ecosystems lose complexity and become simplified systems. Simplified ecosystems are less stable and more fragile. Even small disturbances can cause major collapse. Invasive species often benefit from human-altered landscapes. Urban environments provide ideal conditions for many invaders. Waste areas and roadsides become invasion hotspots. People unknowingly transport seeds on clothing and vehicles. Construction projects can disturb soil and spread invasive seeds. Trade routes act as highways for biological invasion. Cargo containers sometimes carry hidden organisms across continents. Marine ballast water is a major source of aquatic invasions. Ships release organisms into new oceans and coastlines. These organisms can establish large populations rapidly. Once established, they become nearly impossible to remove. Some invasive species form dense mats on water surfaces. These mats block oxygen exchange in aquatic systems. fish and aquatic insects suffer immediate habitat loss. Invasive plants can also release chemicals into soil. These chemicals prevent native plant growth nearby. This phenomenon is known as allelopathy. It gives invasive plants a powerful competitive advantage. Ecosystem restoration must address both biological and chemical damage. Scientists often remove invasives manually in sensitive areas. Mechanical removal is labor-intensive and time-consuming. Chemical treatments can harm native species as well. Biological control introduces natural enemies of invasives. However, this approach must be carefully tested. Poorly chosen control species can become invasive themselves. Ecosystem management requires long-term planning and monitoring. Restoration projects aim to reintroduce native biodiversity. Native plants are replanted to stabilize soil and habitats. Wildlife corridors help native species recover and migrate. Conservation success depends on continuous human effort. Public reporting systems help track invasive sightings quickly. Community participation strengthens environmental protection and networks. Schools and universities play a role in ecological education. Research continues to uncover new invasion pathways. Technology improves detection and response capabilities. Yet prevention remains the most effective solution overall. The fight against invasive species is ongoing and requires global cooperation. Scientists emphasize prevention as the most powerful defense strategy. Protecting ecosystems starts with controlling human movement of organisms. Strong border inspections reduce accidental biological introductions. Public awareness campaigns help reduce careless environmental behavior. Responsible tourism also plays a role in prevention efforts. Travelers are advised not to carry plants or animals across borders. Cleaning equipment after outdoor activities helps stop seed spread. Boats should always be inspected before entering new waters. Simple habits can prevent massive ecological damage over time. Governments invest in monitoring systems to detect early invasions. Early warning systems save ecosystems from irreversible harm. Collaboration between countries strengthens ecological protection networks. Sharing data improves response speed and effectiveness. Conservationists focus on restoring habitats after invasive removal. Native species recovery is a slow but vital process. Ecosystem rehabilitation often requires decades of effort. Success depends on continuous maintenance and monitoring. Community involvement increases the chances of restoration success. Volunteers help remove invasive plants in affected areas. Local participation builds stronger environmental responsibility. Education programs teach children about biodiversity protection. Future generations must understand ecological balance deeply. Research into biological control methods continues to expand. Scientists search for safe and targeted control solutions. Genetic studies help identify vulnerable ecosystems early. Technology like drones improves monitoring of remote regions. Artificial intelligence assists in predicting invasion patterns. Data analysis helps identify high-risk areas globally. Climate models show how warming increases invasion risks. Ecosystems under climate stress are more easily invaded. Protecting biodiversity also helps fight climate change impacts. Healthy ecosystems are more resistant to biological invasions. Restoration of natural habitats strengthens ecological resilience. Conservation policies must be enforced strictly and consistently. Illegal trade of species must be controlled effectively. Aquatic ecosystems require special protection from ballast water release. Forest management practices must prevent invasive plant spread. Agricultural systems also need protection from invasive pests. Farmers play a key role in early detection. Reporting unusual species sightings helps rapid response. Ecosystem balance depends on constant vigilance and care. Without action, invasive species will continue expanding globally. Their impact will intensify with increasing global connectivity. Biodiversity loss threatens food security and ecosystem stability. Human survival is deeply connected to ecological health. Protecting nature also protects future human generations. Sustainable practices reduce the risk of biological invasions. Ecosystem conservation must be a shared global responsibility. Every individual action contributes to environmental protection. Small decisions can create large ecological outcomes. Awareness is the first step toward meaningful change. Science and policy must work together effectively. Restoration efforts show that recovery is possible, but difficult. Some ecosystems have successfully removed invasive threats. These successes provide hope for future conservation. However, constant vigilance is still required. Nature can recover when given proper support. The balance of ecosystems is fragile, yet resilient. Human responsibility is central to maintaining that balance. Invasive species remind us of ecological interconnectedness. Every ecosystem is linked in a global environmental network. Protecting one habitat helps protect many others. The future of biodiversity depends on immediate action. Ending invasive species threats requires unity, knowledge, and commitment.